Phil Taylor has issued a direct warning to Luke Littler, telling the 19-year-old world champion to stay off social media and brace himself for weeks of hostile crowds, and he's drawing on some of the most painful moments of his own career to make that point. This is the full story of what exploded between Littler and Gian van Veen in Manchester, why it turned into one of the biggest controversies of the entire 2026 Premier League season, and what the greatest darts player who ever lived wants Littler to do next. Before any of this makes sense, you need to understand who Gian van Veen is, because this story falls apart if you picture Littler squaring off with some lower-ranked journeyman grinding out a living on the tour. Van Veen turned 23 in April 2026, Dutch, currently the world number 3, a ranking he earned by reaching the PDC World Championship final in January. Two-time PDC World Youth Champion, winner of the 2025 European Championship, where he beat Luke Humphries 11-2, legs to 10 in a deciding set. The current Dutch number 1, having overtaken Michael van Gerwen, and across the entire tour, he carries a reputation as one of the most respectful, well-liked players in the game. Darts News podcast host Kieran Wood put it plainly: if you've got a problem with Gian van Veen, the problem is probably you. Now, Luke Littler. Born in Warrington, he scored his first 180 at age 6 on a magnetic dartboard and hit his first 9-darter at 13. When he entered the 2024 PDC World Championship, his ranking sat at 164th in the world, and the bookmakers had him at 66 to 1. 16 years old, and he reached the final, producing a run the media labelled Littlemania. He lost that final to Luke Humphries, came back the following year and won the title, then won it again in January 2026, beating Van Veen 7 sets to 1 to claim £1 million, the first time that prize had ever been awarded in the history of the sport. 12 PDC major titles, 8 wins from the last 9 major ranking events, world number 1. These two men shared history before anything happened in Manchester. Van Veen beat Littler 6-4 on the very first night of the 2026 Premier League season back in Newcastle, and that result sat in the background of everything that followed. Night 9 of the 2026 BetMGM Premier League darts landed on Thursday, the 2nd of April, at the AO Arena in Manchester, broadcast live on Sky Sports. Quarter-final, best of 11 legs, Van Veen versus Littler. Van Veen had not been in peak shape coming into this one. Weeks earlier, a kidney stones diagnosis forced him to withdraw from Premier League Night 7 in Dublin, and surgery followed. His return for Night 8 in Berlin ended with a 6-1 defeat to Gerwyn Price, which meant Manchester was only his second match back after the operation. None of that showed in the early legs. Van Veen built a 4-1 lead, and at that point it looked straightforward. Littler fought back to 4-all, then 5-all, and an 11-leg match went the full distance to a deciding leg. Van Veen arrived on a score of 90, with double 15 as his route to the win. His first dart caught the inside of the wire and stayed out, and that miss a dart is where the whole evening shifted. Littler responded with a fist pump and a gesture toward the crowd, arms up celebrating his opponent's miss. Van Veen, still standing at the board with a dart remaining in his hand, turned around and saw it. He stared directly at Littler, eyebrows raised, visibly irritated, and that's when Littler escalated rather than stepped back, throwing his arms wider and gesturing aggressively at Van Veen to return to the oche. The Manchester crowd recognised the atmosphere instantly and erupted. Littler stepped up needing double 7 to win the match. He missed again. The momentum he'd built, the crowd behind him, the chance to close out the leg, none of it converted, and Van Veen, maintaining composure while the arena swirled around him, stepped back up and checked out to take the match 6-5. The handshake at the end lasted about 1 second, cold and brief, and as Littler left the stage he mimed a crybaby gesture, rubbing his eyes, reportedly directed at Van Veen, calling him a crybaby to his face on the way off. Wayne Mardle, watching from the Sky Sports commentary position, described Van Veen missing double 15 and Littler celebrating it, saying you shouldn't do that, and concluded that Van Veen handled the whole situation better because Littler came back to the board and, in Mardle's words, fluffed his lines. His verdict on Littler's behaviour: he got caught with his hand in the cookie jar. In his post-match interview on Sky Sports that same evening, Van Veen kept his composure but left nothing unclear. I'm on 90, I missed double 15 on the inside, and then I see him celebrating towards the crowd, Van Veen told Sky Sports. I don't think that's normal. He's a fantastic darts player, but today he showed he's not a good loser. Celebrating a miss from your opponent, that really annoys me. That's why I gave him a look. The fact he then misses 3 darts at a double, that's his problem. He closed with, I love Luke to bits. All the attention he has brought to the sport is phenomenal. But today was my day. Measured, direct, no dramatics. And yet within hours, Littler was on Instagram stories posting a screenshot of his Wikipedia career achievements page, followed by a screenshot of Van Veen's critical post-match quotes with 3 laughing emojis underneath. The internet's response came fast and it came hard. Narcissism at its finest. The complete lack of self-awareness is astounding. Instead of apologizing, he doubles down. These weren't fringe opinions. They dominated the comment sections on Sport, Bible, Give Me Sport, and GB News, and they reflected the clear majority view of fans watching the story develop. In a separate Viaplay interview, Van Veen went further still, confirming the pair had not spoken since Manchester and warning that their next meeting might not be very friendly. When asked about Littler's laughing emojis on Instagram, Van Veen's response was 6 words. I care little about what he thinks. Professional darts is a small world, and within days every name on the circuit had weighed in. Luke Humphries, world number 2, took the measured line, telling ESPN, "It happens every now and then in darts. You get caught up in the emotion, it's a cauldron. Sometimes you do things and think, I wish I wouldn't have done that. It's hot news right now. In 2 weeks, it'll all be forgotten." Gerwyn Price offered something richer than a diplomatic non-answer, because Price knows better than almost anyone what surviving a darts controversy actually feels like. Back in 2018, his conduct during the Grand Slam of darts final against Gary Anderson ended in physical confrontation between the 2 players, and what followed was a record DRA fine of £21,500, reduced on appeal to £11,500, plus a 3-month suspended ban for bringing the sport into disrepute. Anderson received a formal warning. Price absorbed all of it, came through it, and eventually won a world championship. So when he told ESPN, "I feel for the kid at the minute," those words carried weight. Vincent van der Voort delivered the sharpest commentary, starting with the acknowledgement that Littler was still only 19, then cutting straight through it. He's competing at the top level now, among adults, so he'll be judged like one. He raised a concern that gained traction, that Littler might not have the right people around him to say, "Don't do that," before the damage was done. He also noted that Littler was now being booed across Europe and parts of the United States, and that he was only really popular in England, and not even everywhere there. The Darts News podcast landed the most telling observation of the whole episode, when host Kieran Wood pointed out that Littler's on-stage behaviour in Manchester looked familiar. Very Phil Taylor-ish, Wood called it, noting that for all Taylor's greatness, he wasn't a great loser either. The comparison would prove more relevant than Wood perhaps intended, because Taylor himself was about to step in. Night 10 of the 2026 Premier League, Brighton Centre, April the 9th, 1 week after Manchester. Littler walked onto that stage and the crowd booed him. He cupped his ear at them, a defiant gesture that the cameras caught clearly, but defiance alone couldn't carry him through the next 45 minutes. Stephen Bunting beat him 6-4, and Littler's average across the match came in at 83.94, reported across multiple outlets as the worst of his PDC televised career. He hit 0-100 in 80s, the man who had averaged over 100 in EI. Back-to-back World Championship finals couldn't put a performance together in front of a hostile Brighton crowd. After the match, Littler said something that stopped the darts world. "I didn't want to be there, I just couldn't be bothered." Wayne Mardle addressed it directly on Sky Sports, saying it would be more of a coincidence to claim the Manchester fallout had nothing to do with the Brighton performance, and Sky Sports ran the question as a headline in its own right. Was the Brighton exit a knock-on from the Van Veen incident? That result also dropped Littler from 1st to 2nd in the 2026 Premier League table, 3 points behind Johnny Clayton. About 11 days after Manchester, Littler sat down with Online Darts at a Bournemouth exhibition and gave his most complete account of what happened, his position on the fist pump. "I did a little fist bump towards Faith and her dad. That's when the fans on that side started, they were all screaming, so I was like, come on to them, and then the whole arena got involved." Faith Miller, his girlfriend, and her father were watching from the crowd, and Littler's version placed the celebration entirely in their direction, rather than at Van Veen. He pushed back on Van Veen's role in the escalation, saying, "There was no need for Gian to look back and stare at me. He's still got a dart in hand, so really, he should just step back, look at the floor, and then throw his last dart." Then Littler revealed a detail that had not been widely reported. As he walked back around, he claimed Van Veen placed his darts down on the table in front of him, a gesture Littler read as disrespectful. "No one sees that, so hopefully this gets out to people," Littler told the camera. He's the one who was not doing his job of being respectful. He confirmed calling Van Veen a crybaby and explained it directly. "I come inside and called him a crybaby because there was no need for it." And then, perhaps acknowledging how far the fallout had run, he added, "I wouldn't say the fallout, it is what it is done. I think everyone needs to forget about it now." The problem was, the story wasn't done with him yet. Taylor gave his comments to Sunsport, the Sun's sports desk, and Oki 180 republished them. The timing puts the interview somewhere between the Brighton match on April the 9th and Rotterdam on April the 16th, with Taylor referencing Brighton as last week and Rotterdam as this week. 65 years old, 16 world titles, 214 professional tournament wins across a 30-year career that ended in 2018, and he had a clear message for the teenager at the center of all this noise. What that message was not is just as telling as what it was. Taylor didn't condemn Littler's behavior on stage in Manchester. He didn't pile on. What he delivered was the kind of straight counsel that only comes from someone who has stood at a dartboard with a hostile arena trying to break him and found a way to throw anyway. On the booing and what was coming next, Taylor told Sunsport, "I think Luke's tough enough to ride it out. The only way with fans is you've got to perform on stage. If he performs like he can, he'll get them back." Then he mapped out the calendar like a man who knew exactly how darts crowds work. Rotterdam next, Van Veen's home country, Liverpool after that, where Littler's loyalty to Manchester United would earn him grief from the minute he walked out, then Scotland. "He's going to get it up there as well," Taylor said. "He's going to get it, so get some earplugs." That line got the headlines, but the sharpest advice came quietly, and it wasn't about crowds or venues, it was about the phone. "I don't really do social media," Taylor told Sunsport. "It gets done for me, but if I was to advise Luke, I'd say keep off social media. Don't put anything on. Don't do it. Don't rise to it. Leave it alone. Don't do it." That's the warning, not a lecture. About sportsmanship, not a public dressing down. Just a direct instruction from someone who learned the hard way what happens when a competitor at the top of the sport reacts publicly, instead of letting the darts answer for them. Taylor kept his confidence in Littler intact throughout. "He could go up there and think I'm going to show you how good I am and play brilliantly," he said, and added, "He's not a bad lad. I think he's capable of dealing with it." Taylor didn't offer this advice from an armchair. During the interview, he pulled up a specific memory to show Littler exactly what he was talking about. The match was a PDC World Championship semi-final against Eric Bristow at Purfleet. Taylor described it as the hardest he ever had. Heart-pounding, crowd of roughly 900 people, and by his own account, 899 of them booing him, with one person cheering who didn't dare make much noise. "In Wales, you get it. In Scotland, you get it," Taylor told Sunsport. "Did I ever feel intimidated? Thousands of times, yeah, but you have to just ride through it. You've got no choice. You're up there to make a living." And then he said the line that lands differently once you know his record. "Sometimes you're ready to jump off the stage and have a go at somebody." 16 world titles, built in rooms where the crowd wanted him to fail. That context is what gives Taylor's advice its weight, and it's why the mental posture here is earned rather than borrowed. None of this was new either. Back in February 2025, Taylor had already given Littler almost word for word the same social media advice in a Sport Bible interview, alongside warnings about managing money. 2 bank accounts, and what he called the Manchester United syndrome, where every opponent raises their level specifically because of who they're facing. When Littler won his second world title in January 2026, Taylor posted congratulations on social media. Huge. Congratulations to Luke Littler. Well done, buddy. You played brilliant. He had publicly defended Littler against critics, telling anyone who called the teenager arrogant, "Anybody that knocks him is an idiot. They don't know what they are talking about." The Sunsport interview was the same man, the same tone, with a more urgent reason to repeat himself. Luke Littler remains the world number 1. 12 PDC major titles, 8 wins from the last 9 major ranking events, the most dominant recent record in professional darts, and he's 19 years old. And yet on the 2nd of April at the AO Arena in Manchester, the emotions ran ahead of the judgment, a celebration of an opponent's miss, a crybaby gesture on the way off stage, 3 laughing emojis posted to Instagram within hours of the final handshake. and 1 week later, an 83.94 average in Brighton with 0 180s, followed by a public admission that he simply didn't want to be there. Phil Taylor's message cuts through all of it cleanly. Get some earplugs for the crowds that are coming and put the phone down. Don't engage, don't react. Let the darts do what the darts have always done for Littler when everything else gets out of the way. Rotterdam came next on the 16th of April. Van Veen's home country, a crowd with every reason to get involved, and potentially a semi-final meeting between the two players whose relationship Van Veen had described as not likely to be very friendly the next time they met. Whether Littler took Taylor's advice, or whether the competitive fire that makes him extraordinary also made him incapable of staying quiet, was about to become very clear. The world number one had a choice in front of him, and the man with 16 world titles had told him exactly what to do with it.